Hi everyone, welcome to this virtual roundtable. My name is Fareed and I'm the co-founder of Hamari. Can everybody hear me all right? If you can just give me a thumbs up. Yeah. So we're a software development agency. We're focused on helping manufacturers and distributors streamline their operations. And I guess today's focus is going to be around product information management and especially the benefits it could provide to the MEP, the mechanical engineering plumbing sectors and the wider built environment sectors. Following the Grenfell tragedy, the government commissioned a review which basically outlined that the requirement for information and key data relating to how for buildings should be stored digitally. There was a principle of a golden thread of building information described by the Hackett report, and was also recently echoed by the UK BIM Alliance. Hopefully we're going to have Phil Thompson. He's going to be discussing this further. However, one of the things I'd like to speak about is how product information management not only provides much needed data governance and compliance, but also the ability to improve data quality and the opportunity to expand your business's digital footprints into a multi-channel economy. You've now got an increasing number of marketplaces. There's Amazon, there's different websites, more and more manufacturers and distributors are looking to go direct to consumers. There's e-commerce to think about, there's search engines, and so our thesis is that apart from product information management only being about data governance, there's actual a real return on investment that could be gained by investing in a PIM solution. We're a PIM core development partner. It's an open source PIM software solution, and we specialize in helping companies build bespoke PIM solutions. I'm really pleased to have a number of manufacturers on the call, and I really want to know from yourselves how you currently manage your product data. To start off, can we, what I was thinking is if we can start off by having a quick introduction by each of the attendees, and then Phil Thompson can do his presentation following on from that.
I'll go first then, as no one else is speaking. Okay. Obviously, it shows to the kind of propensity to action there. So Jim Herbert, I'm the VP and General Manager of BigCommerce in Europe. So BigCommerce is a software as a service e-commerce platform. So we're very much more a consumer of PIM output, if you know what I mean. But I've got 22 years of experience in the e-commerce space, including the manufacturing and DIY sectors that are kind of sort of related, and understanding exactly the importance. And I'm just going to give a very brief overview of that. I worked on DIY.com years ago, and we're working on search technology, right? So how you search and go and find products is a direct output of PIM, ultimately, and the quality of the data. And one of the reasons we were looking for a new search provider was if you searched for sink, on DIY.com back in 2007, the third result was a shed, because somewhere in the product data, somewhere in the description, someone had jokingly written, this shed is so nice, you could put a sink in it and use it as a garden room. And so that's just an example of how you really need to get the data right in our industry anyway, to make sure you get the right product and get the right conversion rate and sell more. So I'm here from more of a commerce focus, but also to give some color to it from that perspective.
I guess I'll go next. I'm Henry Stocks-Fry. I'm Customer Success Lead at Bidnamic. We're a machine learning software for Google Shopping. So like Jim, we're from a kind of a B2C background. We work with a lot of e-commerce customers, some on BigCommerce as well, who really want to make the most out of Google Shopping. So we're using a lot of different data points from external sources. So having kind of a central source of truth is quite important to us.
I'm happy to go next. My name's Gary Lynch. Until the end of December, I was the Chief Executive of GS1 UK, which is as the name suggests, is a UK organisation, but one of 115 global open source standards organisations. You'll know us from the barcode underneath the you'll notice for the number underneath the barcode. That's us. What you probably don't know about us is that it's mandated in certainly in England, Northern Ireland, and Wales. Haven't cracked Scotland yet. That we also identify patients and locations and all sorts of things to make the patient safer, including the implanting of products into people, so that we avoid the breast implant scandal. And there are some parallels there. We know where things are because they're all coded uniquely in an open source and a global way, and that's what GS1 does. I also know, although GS1 UK, mainly because for capacity issues, never got talking directly to the building industry in the UK, there are examples around the globe where, certainly in France, where the organisation there has working very closely with the building industry there to bring the sort of technologies. You know, we're not a technology provider, we're a not-for-profit standards organisation, to bring our standards into the building industry so that we can track products where they are, and you have visibility of what's. I've got a new house here, and by the way, when I moved in 10 years ago, everything went wrong. And I know from personal bitter experience that trying to find out what model of things were put in, what heating system was put in, was impossible, because no one had the plans and no one knew what products were put in or anything else. So we know there is a problem. Or why I'm here and why I've been asked here, I guess, is that despite whatever technology is employed, my plea to everybody would be to standardize, get the industry together to standardize the data, because otherwise it won't work. So that's me.
Chris, from the Netherlands, what we do is with PIMvendors.com, we have an overview of a lot of PIM systems out in the world, and we know the capabilities of the different PIM systems. So there are PIM systems really focused on retail, on print, but also a lot of PIM systems will have already a lot of capabilities built in for the building and construction. And with Contact Consulting, we're actually getting some projects done now with where we try to harmonize product information, and like what Gary just said, we're talking with the GS1s, we're talking with 2BA, all these organizations who are trying to organize and to harmonize the information so the whole chain can profit from this.
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Phil Thompson. I work for NG Bailey. We're a large building services or MEP contractor based in mainly in the UK, what probably the largest independently owned. And I'm the procurement data manager. So my role is to basically maintain the data that comes into our procurement and estimation systems. And we're one of the people suffers the inadequacies of data managed in the construction industry, and a lot of my time is spent split between strategic functions and also day-to-day activities in the weeds, supporting our site teams in acquiring part data and the correct codes, etc. So I was asked to join this forum, so I'm hoping to do a short presentation after the intros and then really open the conversation about kind of how we can address the issues that we face.
So, hi, Tom Alton. As you can see, I'm at Operance. There we go. Look at that. We're FM app. That's one thing we do. We also do BIM consultancy, BIM at project level, O&M creation, digital O&Ms, and then we look after those O&Ms and do FM. Which is why I'm really interested in product data from a professional sense, because we want to make sure that we put the right product data into our app for people to operate and maintain that estate. Also, with my extracurricular activities, I'm involved with Constructing Excellence. I'm the chair of Yorkshire and Humber's Constructing Excellence. I'm also the chair of Constructing Excellence Digital. And one of our projects is to try and coordinate product data templates within the UK or at least formalize what kind of information needs to go into it, what information is useful from both a manufacturer side and also the user side. So we're working with the Construction Innovation Hub, amongst others, to put that together. With a little bit of Alex Small action where possible. We'll get to him in a sec. I'm also, we mentioned the Golden Thread and the Hackett Review. I'm also the chair of the project management strand or work stream of the government's Golden Thread initiative, which is being organised by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. So I'm involved in that as well. So everything we're talking about here is really important to me, and is important to the groups that I work with as well.
After that, I better go next. And Tom, my name is Alex Small. I'm the BIM and Digital Platforms Manager at Tata Steel. In a similar way to Tom, I also chair a theme group of Constructing Excellence on off-site technology manufacturing. I also get fairly involved in various things on product data, including sitting on the B555 UK Standards Mirror Committee for TC442, various bits and pieces I've done with UK BIM Alliance, BIM for M2, some manufacturers BIM working group when that was still around. I sit on the digital task group with Tom as well on the product data, lexicon working group as well, on putting together our data dictionary work in the UK, and well, various other bits and pieces. In terms of Tata Steel UK, we set up a product database for all our 6,500 product variations across Tata Steel Europe. About 3.5 years ago, we developed a front-end tool to enable that to be accessed and pulled into objects or not pulled into objects. We've also released a tool that links our product database through a BIM plugin so that people can design, configure our building envelope products and have a live data link directly back to the technical manager sitting controlling our data in our database. So that sort of live golden thread, if you like, between manufacturer's product data, the technical manager controlling that database, linked right the way through to the architect, specifier, customer in a 3D model. And yeah, a few other bits and pieces.
Hi everybody, I'm Alex Lubbock. I am director of my own company called Amado Limited. Why am I here? I guess from an Amado perspective, it's my own company, but I'm building on, I guess, the last 3 years working for a company called BIM Object, who are the largest content marketing platform in the globe for building manufacturers' information related to BIM. I've also spent 3.5 years in the Cabinet Office heading up digital construction, manufacturing and technology, advising on a lot of the policy development for the industrial strategy and a number of other areas. And I am just about to step into a new role, working for the British Standards Institute as a director heading up product certification.
Hi there, so I'll jump in next. Markus Richards, and I guess I am here representing the agency side of things. I've been working in the agency world for about 10 years, and PIM has always been a big part of what we do. Generally, kind of web development, app development, e-commerce development. And I guess the work we've always done has always been quite data driven. So certainly when it comes to e-commerce, PIM has been a kind of a natural choice for us. Our relationship with PIM has typically been one of a kind of a go-to tool to help clients organize their data. Typically clients come to us, they have a real problem with their product data, it's a real mess, and we need to help them organize that. So PIM is the obvious choice, and then we'll build customer facing products on top of that. We got involved in PIM kind of about 10 years ago, really, when it wasn't so much, it wasn't a big deal in the agency world. It's always been for manufacturers and retailers, but in the agency world, it was no one, or very few people really focused on it. I feel like in the last couple of years that's starting to change. PIM systems, there's more open source systems, it's more attainable for smaller retailers, for smaller manufacturers. So I think it's quite an exciting time for PIM in general. And I think now is a good time to be talking about that and talking about what's the future of PIM, what should we be doing with it.
Sorry, Knutjasang, Pipe Life Norway, plastic pipe manufacturer, biggest in Norway, and also part of the Wienerberger Group in Vienna. So I work as a product manager for what we would like to call digital solutions. So work a lot with, I would say, the connection between PIM and BIM. Also in charge of the Building Smart Norway product room, focusing a lot of structured data, GS1 standards, data sharing, that kind of topics. So in a Pipe Life Norway perspective, we have spent a lot of time and resources on structuring our product information the recent 2 years, I would say. So, and also in Norway in general, we see I would say the rise of structured data according to ISO 23386 and 7. So that's also something we focus a lot of in Building Smart. So yes, thank you.
Hi everyone. I think I've spoken to most of you already. Thanks for coming along. I've been working with Farid at Hamari Agency, researching product information management since last year, and really the built environments come to our attention just because of the complexity, and we're just seeing that if there's a problem worth finding a solution for, it probably is within this industry. We've been looking at the recent reports that have gone out, looking at the long-term strategy for industry-wide standardization, and we feel that we kind of, maybe from our expertise, understands the short-term goals that can maybe align with the longer-term goals, such as operations, being agile enough to respond to what maybe new regulation may be bringing around the corner for product information, and hopefully being able to align what the benefit for, say, manufacturers is today to get their product data sorted will really sort of like tie into what the industry might be looking at doing on a longer term basis.
So hi everyone, I'm Hina. I work in BigCommerce as a partnership growth manager. Just want to say, Hamari, thank you so much for obviously coming on board and also inviting us to this webinar, right? As Jim mentioned, our focus is going to be more around PIMs on an e-commerce focused basis. I'm actually just really excited to hear your thoughts about PIMs and also how PIM has actually changed within 2021. So just excited to hear your thoughts, guys.
Kevin Miller, Managing Director of Craig & Derricott. We're a low voltage switchgear manufacturer. We very recently started a BIM project to standardize the information. We end up working with a very wide range of customer knowledge. As a result, the information that we have previously shared has always been tailored to suit that sector of the market or that knowledge. We're now in the process, and we've got 5,000 products, we're in the process of standardizing that so that the information isn't overwhelming for the less technical, but answers what the technical people need to know. Sounds straightforward, but it's, with all these things, the more you go into it, the harder and the more challenging it becomes. So that's where we are.
Okay, I'd like to hear more about this project and the kind of software solutions that you're currently using for that project. Phil, are you ready to go with your presentation?
Yeah, I can run with that. What I'll do is, as well, as I'm conscious that there's probably a lot of people on the call that I don't want people to suck eggs looking at the cross section that we've got. So I'll try and tailor it specifically. And I'm conscious this. I don't want to make this into a presentation because as I said, I'm preaching to the converted, I suspect. So I want this to be a conversation. So if there are any questions that people have got, I'll just pop a screen share on now then. So as I say, I'll skip through this and maybe a couple of slides I'll skip as well. And apologies to Alex because he'll have seen some of the content of this, but this is a part of a presentation that I've shared with a number of people. Most recently did one for the EDA, the Electrical Distributors Association. So, so the first thing I wanted to just bring to everyone's attention is that one of the problems that we see as the contractor is that there is a confusion in the MEP industry because of the number of people, trade associations and perhaps think tanks that are trying to solve the problem. And in my view, I think we need a top-down approach. We need one of these organisations to, you know, perhaps strip away some of the work other people are doing. I'll bring it under one roof, as it were, and present this to the industry as a solution. It seems at the moment that many people are trying to solve the problem, which is arguably making it worse. And if anyone, you know, again, wants to challenge me on any of these or any specific knowledge of any particular trade association body, I'm happy to discuss that. So this simple graphic is a representation of the quality of the data that leaves our business. Now, I always present this because this is the foundation for why we're trying to address the problem. Within our organisation, we measure the quality or the integrity of every single line that leaves our business on a purchase order. So each one of these columns represents a region of our business, and it's the quality of the data for each purchase order line, not the number of purchase orders, but the line within that purchase order. So one order could have one line, or it could have 1,000 lines. Now, where items in green mean that they are fully coded, they leave our business based on a unique ID, such as, you know, for example, an EAN code, for example. So we know that the integrity of the line or the information associated with that is pulled from the central database, and it is, in essence, you know, matched, it works, it's validated, etc., and that's good. Then we then have a number of, in orange, what we refer to as process through the back door. It's a secondary platform which we allow people to use, but we know that it needs spot checks because there is the opportunity for them to fudge the data. But typically it's, you know, generally all right. And then we have a very small amount of leakage where people have just described an item against the quotation, or they've described it as a special when it's not. And the grey line running through the bottom is specials in the industry, and this fluctuates significantly month on month because the construction industry is made up of both commoditized products and specials. You know, this could be a specialist pipe spool. So, for instance, some of the items that Alex mentioned in his role would be commodity products, but if you take a piece of that pipe and then you re-engineer it and weld some T's into it, for example, that's an engineered solution, and that would be very difficult to produce a repeatable code for. Okay, so just to remind people, I think a few people have raised the Hackett report, the golden thread, etc. But one of my frustrations, if you go back 26 years, the industry, the MEP industry has been being told to sort itself out, get better at what you do, you're inefficient, blah, blah, blah. And you know, I've been involved in a number of internal studies and looking at lean activities, etc. And we haven't changed, and I'm not seeing any significant improvement. And it's embarrassing, to be honest with you. Okay, now, this is where perhaps my views differ from some people, because controversially, I think that the BIM agenda has perhaps been a distraction to the industry when it comes to managing part data. I think that the whole concept around BIM has been led by the modelling and the building and the modelling aspect to it, and a lot of manufacturers have gone off and been sold a pup because they've spent money creating data for models, when a lot of times those models were unusable because they were excessive. Or if you look at the products on this slide here, many of these items do not are highly unlikely to ever appear in a BIM model. Now, they are key to the installation and the integrity of the installation. If you take the very simple product on the graphic on the top left, that's a setting tool. Now that setting tool goes with a Fisher ETA approved drop-in wedge anchor of a particular dimension. Now, you have to use that setting tool to set the anchor in a concrete to achieve the design loads. If you don't meet the manufacturer's requirements. Now, unless we use the code for that product, we're not going to get that drift, and we're going to get an alternative product from the supply chain. So it's absolutely key that all of the products in the construction industry, the data for them is pulled together in one place, not just complex products with geometry and photometric data. And this is a real frustration for us. Okay, so let's move on to the perception of the way data is transacted in the industry. So At the moment, there's probably a view that it's a bit of a mixed-matched approach, and the traditional model is that you have, on the left-hand side, you would have the manufacturers, or I refer to these people as the owners of the data. They create the part data within their own systems, allocate part numbers, and then that data has traditionally been transacted on a very ad hoc basis, moved from left to right into the vendors, the consumers of the data, in a very uncontrolled manner. You know, send me a price file, send me an update, send me an import, etc. Okay, so what we would like to look like is this, and I think Tom mentioned the golden thread here. This is something I've been banging on about for years, but you know, it's now been documented, obviously, as a concept within the Hackett report. But this is the utopia that we really need to be striving for. And you know, arguably, Gary mentioned his work with GS1. You know, the construction industry is poles apart from what sort of retail and pharmaceutical have done, because we just don't have that unique ID. Right. No, this is the reality. This is the mess that we're in. Now, the problem that we've got here is that you've got the initial slide and the golden thread concept overlaid with each other. So we do have at the moment central sources of data. We use a source of data, and there are other sources within the sector. And the problem is that some of those other alternatives are marketing their solutions, and it's become a competitive environment. In my mind, data management and the single source of the truth cannot be a competitive solution. It has to be a single source of the truth. It has to be agnostic. So unfortunately, what we've got, because of these two different processes overlaid on top of each other, we've got, I'm referring to as dysfunctional transactional interruptibility. If we want to go to the distributor that we purchase from and use a unique ID to match goods received notes, invoices, quotations, any digital structure, we can't do it because they use their own part data, and many of them refuse to adopt the central source because, in my mind, they like the ambiguity that the lack of clarity around lack of part data provides, because it's smoke and mirrors. They can hide behind it, and we don't want that. We want to take the lid off this. Just a few examples I'll show you. So if we take a single product within the sector with an MEP part an MEP part code, and then that's pushed into the various different business systems, each one allocating its own part number. Again, this is where the reduction of the interruptibility comes from. Obviously, using the golden thread, that's what we'd like to see more of. I won't stress that any further. But this is where, again, just to give people a reality check about what's actually happening is, at the moment, you've got a complexity because you've got the manufacturer providing a part number, and then you've got also alongside of that, in parallel, the distributor, who is just a box mover. They're also providing a part number. They're mirroring the manufacturer's product into the database. Now, further confusion, because which part number do we use? Who does the contractor, the distributor, because it's been contaminated? So, you know, and I've got real examples, thousands of lines where you've got duplicate and triplicate part data for the same product, and this can't be allowed to continue. Again, even if you had a single version of the truth. So imagine this was the barcode. Imagine, you know, GS1 did manage the content in the sector. If this wasn't managed, or we allowed distributors to contaminate that database with their own part number for, in essence, the same product, then again, you can't rely on it. It cannot be trusted. This is just a graphic to demonstrate, again, the lack of interruptibility that we've got and the frustrations. This is a daily issue that we have. So we have different databases. So distributor uses database A, contractor uses version B, and all of the transactions, you know, trying to get quotation matches, goods received, not invoices. Interruptibility is just almost impossible. Now, this is where I think it's gone wrong. If you look at construction products, the standards, the legislation, the accreditation, which all the products are manufactured to, and any reputable manufacturer want to fit into this space, that's where we want to be as a contractor. We only want to purchase these products. Now, unfortunately, the building block that hasn't been put in place before all the other work that the BIM agenda has driven, which is missing, is the single unique ID. There is no unique ID for any one product. So all of the other great work that's been done on modeling BIM information, all the other codes, the unit measure, pack size, all the attribute data, the geometry, etc., is all built on, in my mind, it's all built on sand, because you haven't got a way of differentiating all the products. And, you know, all the different users of these data, the consumers of the data, are struggling. that one will probably just, again, I put that in there when I presented to other people to remind people that this can be done. You know, there's obviously the numbers, but many other parts of our lives are run based on a single unique ID, a version of the truth that we can all rely on. But we don't have that in construction sector. I think that's probably it. I'll skip the rest of the slides because it's probably better if we have a conversation about that. Does that make sense to everybody?
I agree with everything you've said there. I think it's mint.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, where do I go for the solution?
I was going to say, this is one where there's not necessarily a technology solution, right? As you said, you know, a PIM system is not going to fix this. All it does is provide a bucket for data. It's how we get unique data well assigned. And I'm just thinking out loud as someone not from the construction sector. I've got a brother who's a brickie, right? I know a lot of builders and stuff, and you know, I've had family in the industry, so to speak, and I've had to deal with the construction ultimately. But it's coming from the outside. It sounds like it's almost like a trade body that's required to do this coding. It's going to cost money though, right? So somehow there's going to have to be something set up to do that. But you know, the safety gains in particular, you know, using your concrete anchor example, would be immense ultimately. And I don't think personally, I don't think a government body would necessarily do a better job than getting a trade body together. Maybe taking like the bids do, some sort of fee on a monthly basis, a very small fee from people involved to then actually run this for people. But no, that's just an idea from somebody from a different industry ultimately. I just thought I'd throw it out there. I don't know what you guys think.
I was going to just moot the idea of constructing excellence being involved in this sort of thing, Alex, and to everybody. We're already we've already noticed there are an awful lot of people, like Alex mentioned Lexicon, we've got Templator, we've got all of these different people looking at product data. So we're trying to bring them all under one roof. But one of the requirements that they have for this is we need this GUID, you know, we need this global unique identifier that we can assign right at the beginning, keep track of all the way through construction and on into operation and maintenance. And there needs to be, like you say, an organization who's got who has contacts and influence at every level of the industry. So somebody like Constructing Excellence, we have our national members, we've got our regional members, but we've also got our club members, which is the kind of the man on the street, your high vis and high hat, all the way up to your kind of CEOs and all that kind of stuff in government. But I agree, we need to organise it. So you need, whoever looks after it needs to have influence at every level within the industry and membership as well.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of projects going on in this area. Probably the biggest one is the digital supply chain in the built environment project, which is at European level, and that's a combination of CoBuilder, Building Smart, and GS1, but has quite good buy-in from several industries. But they've run into some problems. I've been involved in that for a couple of years now on the periphery, really. My view is that it needs to be at least a European solution. We can't have a unique UK or even, let's face it, GB solution now because we've lost Northern Ireland. So you can't have a unique GB solution, mostly because construction product manufacturers are, I think that the largest 9 of the 10 in the CPA are at least European companies. And the way in which we handle all this data needs to be across all our production units, not just focused on one country. So as with all of these things, it needs to be ideally a global solution. So I think digital supply chain and built environment is trying to tackle that with GS1. My concern, and I'll put it out there publicly because I have said it in those meetings as well. I have 2 concerns with it. One is if you're at a merchant's level, then that ID can be at SKU level, SKU level. That's all right, and that's fine. But if you've already got ways of GS1 dealing with that way, for us, we need a unique instance level, because for us, every time we produce a product, it could have a different finish, a different color, a different length, and therefore there are literally billions of combinations that are available. We can't operate with a known number up front. We would have to generate a number every time we produce a different instance of every product. And so there's challenges in there, and it's not necessarily easy to solve. But you know, I think there's ways of using GUIDs and others. Actually, I was having a little text chat with Alex Lubbock because of his new role. The British potential or the BSI set up something, or tried to set up something called digital product identifiers. That is a data repository, and is again something where manufacturers go to dump their data. We all talk about the single source of the truth. The single source of the truth for me should be my database. And if I'm generating a product with unique information on the unique instances of products, that should come back to my database because I can control it. And I think all we need is a way in which a unique reference number, a unique ID is generated that we can sync in automatically with our systems, and then we can apply that to unique instances or SKUs or whatever it might be. But yeah, there needs to be some standardization in this area. There needs to be some work to think about how this is going to work, not just on GB, but a UK level, sorry, at a global level. But it's not easy.
I think just to add to that, Alex, that yeah, digital object identifiers is I guess a standard approach for other sectors. I don't know how the pilot ran, if I'm being honest, and I'm not part of the team in terms of going forward. But obviously, I guess the intention is to be at that instance level and make it available rather than as a repository, as a way to kind of generate those IDs, but be able to share them in a way that allows people to create that traceability in the future. So, I mean, I think I think a combination of these solutions, with all these things, technology is never the problem, is it? It's you know, it's my product's better than yours, and you know, the lack of cultural alignment across the industry to collaborate and coordinate. So, you know, everyone wants to sit on the top, and no one wants to do the work unless they're paid a significant amount of money to do it. So we need to, I mean, whilst I absolutely applaud the idea of some top-down diktat that says we shout, that is not going to come. So we also need to build some of these things out and actually, you know, build a community around the best tools out there. So, you know, I would always use the example that Uber was probably not the best or the first ride-hailing app, but it was the one that, from an experience perspective, gave the user the best possible outcome, and there's the one that's grown as a result. So, or has become the market leader as a result. So we have to think about different ways to skin the cat, and obviously, you know, whilst people have not necessarily started from the same angle at some of these discussions, you know, the construction sector is so broad that actually people's demands and requirements for product data are very, very different all the time for different types of people. So I agree that there needs to be more standardization. I agree that there needs to be more consistency in how that is kind of procured and deployed. You know, ultimately we need to kind of see what manifests itself, but agree what the problem is in the first place. And it sounds like we're coming to that, you know, coming to that space now at a broader level, that there is a problem. It's really interesting to see a lot of e-commerce people on the call. And I'd like to hear some of their experience of dealing with construction products, both as in a B2B environment, not in a, you know, B2C, you know, Screwfix type of way. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they need in this space to start to bring some of the other scale on the consumer side that creates the demand to change the way we're working.
So Alex, we worked with a workwear provider, so kind of touching, not exactly construction, but kind of close to that industry. And what we found was businesses, SMEs, were interested in selling online, but weren't quite interested in the data management aspect of things. Then realizing actually it's a real pain to constantly have to update content, and actually there's thousands of different SKUs, and have initially been interested in doing e-commerce, and but once they've actually set up e-commerce, they've realized that they need somebody actively monitoring the product data, or multiple people monitoring the product data. And actually, if it was done the other way around, where there was a PIM system put in place, where they're able to easily import and export CSVs, and they're able to import data from manufacturers, it would have been a much easier process. It would have benefited they would have had the ability to create catalogs. They would have been able to sell on different channels. And by not having a data management strategy, apart from the governance aspect, it could have meant making more money for the business. And I actually think that this is what manufacturers, especially, so I'm aware that there's larger organizations that already have a PIM in place, but the companies that don't have a PIM in place, it could be, it needs to be at the heart of the digital transformation that they need to do, because it's all good and well having a unique identifier, but if the product information isn't being updated by the manufacturer, whatever that unique identifier is, that data can still be incorrect. And Phil, you can tell me what you think about it.
I mean, just on that, I mean, you have to consider here that, you know, is this discussion a lean exercise? You know, should organizations be more efficient?
Yeah.
Or as a manufacturer, is my responsibility to potentially shareholders or other aspects of the business to grow? Yeah. So is it to sell product? So absolutely agree, organizations should be more efficient, but if there are 18,000 manufacturing organizations approximately in the UK that are 1 to 9 people, I wouldn't be investing in a PIM system either.
So Alex, my argument to that is PIMs have come a long way. It's not your £1 million implementation anymore. There are open source solutions out there that can get you set up in a matter of weeks. The market has moved on. SMEs are able to make investments of 10 to 50 grand as opposed to £500,000 to £1 million investment.
Yeah, but the issue is not really the technical implementation of a PIM system. It's behind this. What's in it for them to improve their product data, to have this on a certain level. And I think that can be a driver for manufacturers to improve data. Otherwise, they're maybe out of business in some time. But
it's the short-term motivation, isn't it? Is what's the commercial gain for somebody to standardize their product data in a way that's going to benefit the entire industry? And I think that, as Phil mentioned, some people enjoy the ambiguity of product data at the moment, and I think that's down to things like, you know, price comparison sites. And I think that until we really get over those issues and really deliver a motivation, you know, for a short-term gain for people to standardize their data, it's going to be really hard to make this go forward.
When looking at product data or the conversations like this, you've got to think about the different pressures, I guess, and drivers between information, product data required for an e-commerce platform, i.e. what's required to sit on a website to sell the product, and product data that would be supported by a product data template, which might be what I have in my head as to what we're looking at here, the kind of the full Kobe data set in the UK and performance characteristics, etc. And those two things, you know, they need to come together in terms of a full data set, but they're different, and the way in which you treat them is different. But they both come down to the same thing. If you don't have a governance system and a product database in a manufacturer that is going to make sure that it's not just, you know, uploaded or in my presentation thrown over a wall into somebody else's database, and then they don't then maintain it from that point on, everything you do is a waste of time.
I would certainly endorse that. There are a lot of parallels. I won't even pretend to understand the dynamics of the building industry, but you know, I can tell you from a retail perspective, we've had GS1 standards in retail since the 70s, and in the UK, which I can talk specifically about and stuff that's in the public domain. A few years ago, now 3 years ago, the retailers knew that they had a problem at understanding data for their products. With one exception, no retailer in the UK had a PIM. So they had, in fact, some of them were running on 40-year-old information systems. So it was a chronic. And as successive organizations, they've gone for growth and have some of the worst IT in the UK. And the fact that we've got a very successful retail industry surprises everybody that's on the inside of it. However, if you think about a product that's sold at the till, you'd think there'd be a very easy way, and it'd all be pretty standardized because that's where GS1 cuts its teeth. But each manufacturer and each retailer would meddle around with the data, and even understanding the template, the basic data set that says it is a Nestle coffee, was in one system where retail would have it as a beverage, and another one it'd have as coffee. So there is no way, and every manufacturer, especially the small ones, were having to think, right, I'm trading with Tesco, so I have to send the data in this format, and their way of defining things and cataloging things is completely different from Sainsbury's. And it was only until the pain was really bad, and frankly, we had things like people eating the wrong things and dying, so there was certainly a lot of press interest. There was the Horsegate scandal, and so whether no one knew where the food was coming from. So the regulation and the court of public opinion, the green agenda, plastic recycling. Now you look at so yes, we need to make money, but we need to do it in a way. So they came together with GS1, they're our owners. They sit on our board. We're not a trade association as such. We're a standards organisation, and they asked us to sit with them. We did it for a year, where all of the retailers and manufacturers literally pulled all the things that they called everything, and they harmonised and became a UK version of the way that you describe food products in the UK. The most important thing was it was a subset and no deviation from the global data that we have within GS1. So it is a globally applicable data set, and that's been harmonized globally. And boy, oh boy, is that a lot of work. But there's no way GS1's got about 3,000 employees worldwide. There's no way that any organization can do that. It took the pain, whether it's legislation or something else, to drive those major players around the table to actually work together. And yes, we've got a database within GS1 in the UK called Product DNA, and where manufacturers now being told to put their product data, which is standardized to GS1 codes, into that data. Now this is as soon as a product is conceived, they start building up the data set, and they build, and it's never 100% complete until quite late on, where the image comes down, and then it goes into the e-commerce. But most of it is for the supply chain data that needs to be used. So that's one parallel. But the spark was, and somebody mentioned it on the call, is that if you've got 1 million trade associations that's terribly bad at talking to each other, unless there's some way of bringing them together and say, look, there's a pain, let's not try and boil the ocean, let's take something the most acute with perhaps a degree of difficulty that is not like splitting the atom a billion times. Let's do that, and let's have some success and work together. And it, we're talking, and you from what I can hear, this has been a problem for some time. You're not unique at all. There are lots of sectors in exactly the same position. But unless the industry can find some way of coming together, and I don't work for GS1 anymore. I worked for them for 18 years, and I was CEO for 16 years of that. But obviously I have a knowledge of what they do. But working with somebody that works on a global footing, like a GS1, and there are others, is a good way. And by the way, GS1 adapts the standards to fit the industry. So for example, in health, we've all got NHS numbers, We identify patients. Patients go in when it's linked, so the patient's linked to the consultant, the nurse and everything else, and the bed and the drugs and everything else. And because they didn't want to change the NHS number, so we found a way of embedding the NHS number into the GTIN, which we didn't use a GTIN, we used another code. And so it looks like a GS1, it talks like a GS1, but we embedded in that is the NHS number, and the software just knows how to strip that out. So I'm sure the industry, the complexity of your industry, will have loads of things. It just it's more complex than retail. But clothing, by the way, is also quite a complex, because different sizes, different colors, and there are ways that GS1 has accommodated the standards so that you can have one SKU with lots of different variants. Now, you can't solve this in 40 minutes on a call. But whatever the solution is, again, I know that one of you have been working, I think it was you, Alex, working with GS1. I haven't heard of the digital supply chain. I don't know which country's leading with that. But, you know, sit round the table with a standards body who all they do is standards, and then bring the industry into that to provide the requirements would be my strong suggestion. And, you know, I don't work for GS1 anymore because lots of companies do try and develop their own standards, and it's a long dead end. So I'll shut up now.
That was really interesting. Thanks, Gary. And also depressing, if I'm honest, because listening to the journey that you've gone on and where we are in construction, we're clearly, you know, still years away. But if I could draw some parallels with the comments that you made, and also what Alex said earlier about, you know, the different data sets and organizations within the construction sector, there has already been a database. It's not the database, it's a database, and it's run by a company called, well, they're owned by Trimble now, but it's called Lookins. Now, that database has been in operation for 55 years. Yes, 55. And it also already has a data set of 1.1 million lines. Now, pretty much all of MEP manufacturers of any substance are on Lookins. They've got about 3,000 customers split between contractors and the distribution network who are all already tapped into Lookins in their ERP systems. The problem is, and this is all about maturity in the sectors, that many of them don't use that data in a way that we would all wish them to. It's not efficient. They use it as a secondary source of data, and they always resist using the code because they want to use their own. So a lot of this conversation is about maturity. It's about and again, I think Noel made a reference there about the industry they love this hiding behind this smoke and mirrors, because, you know, the moment you take the lid off this, bang, they're exposed, aren't they? So I think that this is part of the frustration that we've got as NG Bailey, is that we're already using this particular database, and we see this as being, you know, a solution, but maybe it's a Betamax VHS issue. I don't know, but it's that's where we are.
The one thing I'd say from a technology perspective, you know, using the modern PIMs that sort of Fareed spoke to during this chat, and the open source stuff that Alex mentioned, you know, systems are increasingly open and operable. You know, you can much more increasingly integrate stuff and open up bits using kind of fine-grained security and everything else very easily. So Phil, that example of that database, you know, that could be accessible to a PIM. And so it could, you know, it could be, technology is not the answer is what I'm trying to say here, right? Yeah. But it has come on a long way to make it easier to work together. And so it shouldn't be as hard as it was in the past, maybe, to get bodies working together to maybe use a central source of truth, potentially, because the technology would support that with software as a service and all the other good things that you have in the modern PIM world. However, like I say, it's not the answer. You need to put that framework in place and put the either legislation or some kind of incentive to make sure that people do come together. Because I think, come back to Gary's point about people dying from eating the wrong food, Grenfells are, you know, they're thankfully rare, right? When they happen, they're massive. But in the construction industry, there's a bit more of a lead time to something bad happening, if you know what I mean. Whereas with food, you know, there's still things go wrong, right? Someone died last year of a peanut allergy because something wasn't coded properly. But the impact's very, very quick, and therefore legislation's very, very quick. So it's a question of making sure we avoid scenarios like that, and somehow we need to get the incentive in place to make it happen. But the technology can support it, and it's kind of beholden on us to choose the cheapest and easiest way to do it.
Jim,
the difference is what Gary mentioned. They worked with the retailers. Now, maybe Alex can answer, Alex Small, regarding the work that it's doing with GS1. How many distributors are involved in these conversations?
Probably more than there are manufacturers. It was certainly the first part of it was much more distributor focused than let's call ourselves kind of I don't know, construction product manufacturers that produce products.
And who are, Alex, just out of interest, who are those distributors?
Well, Saint-Gobain were there. They've got a very large distribution network. I don't know if we don't really deal with other than actually the pipes, the tubes that you source through from us. We do very little actually through distributors. Most of ours goes through the kind of subcontractor supply route. But it needs to work for both of those.
Just to let you know, I need to wrap up. I did say an hour. I would like to have another virtual roundtable in the future, but just to let you know, we've got a couple of minutes before we need to wrap up.
Okay, I'll make my point very quickly.
Okay,
key thing for the next decade, transparency and accountability. So coming back to the comment earlier, actually, do people really want to be accountable? And what is the appetite here to being transparent is one from a cultural point of view. Obviously, with the HSE, assuming the building safety bill passes through government, then the HSE will be forming a regulator. I think it's absolutely appropriate that something like this forms a part of the remit of that regulator. Yet, I don't think from a post-Grenfell perspective that those activities, because I believe they've been watered down in many areas in relation to data, are included. But it's for this group to kind of start pitching that to those organisations.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all the suggestions that you've given. We'll hopefully have a follow-up on this. And just to let you know, we have recorded this. And there will be some posts on social media that will be going out about this webinar, and hopefully we can work together and see where we can help each other. Gary, I think there's a lot to learn from your experiences, and Phil, thank you for presenting, and hopefully we can start to think about which organisations we need to start pulling in together to make this happen.
Well, I'm happy to be invited. Again, at any time you want to get, because I'm an ex-GS1 CEO now, so I haven't had a brain transplant, so I do still remember stuff. I'm not that old. But if you want to get GS1 involved at any one time, then let me know and I'll see if I can get them along.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thanks all.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Cheerio.
Bye.
Bye.